Now, the Bahamas may be best known for its beautiful beaches, but it's now making waves with its blockchain technology, the island launching one of the world's first central bank-backed digital currencies in October. It's called the Sand Dollar, and it's backed by the Bahamian dollar, which is also pegged to the US dollar. To tell us all, joining us now, John Rolle. He's the governor of the Central Bank of Bahamas. John, fantastic to have you on the show. I'm incredibly excited to talk about this. You are right at the forefront and the cutting edge of adopting this technology. Just explain to us how you see it working and why it's an advantage to traditional forms of money and currency.
Thank you very much, Julia. In the Bahamas, we started along a process to modernize our payment system. And we addressed a lot of issues along the way, such as the big one, which is financial inclusion. Having an island archipelago and persons being scattered, even though a lot of the population has access to banking, the experience is different depending on how close you are to the city center. What we needed to do was to accelerate the transition to the more distribution of services through digital channels. And we also put emphasis on bringing new payment services providers into the space. And when we looked at the role that the public sector, in this case, the central bank, could play, it was really in terms of making certain that these platforms could communicate, or as referred in the technical language, they are interoperable. So we saw a central bank digital currency as being the link to provide that interoperability, ensuring that a lot of the experiences, such as the access the persons have to cash, there's no discrimination in terms of how they choose in terms of digital product provider, and that the experience across product providers doesn't become a hindrance. In other words, we don't want persons to be fixated on who they choose to provide their payment services. Once we can make certain that they are operating in an interoperable setting. And from that point of view, in a country where there are significant fixed costs to developing financial services infrastructure, it makes sense for the public sector, or the central bank in our case, to go there and take the lead in putting the infrastructure in and having the central bank digital currency as that lubricating mechanism or interoperable mechanism for the payment system.
How much of a transaction cost reduction could we see? Because I think this cuts to the heart of it, to your point, and I believe around, 20% of your population are unbanked, so giving them access to mobile wallets and digital currency makes perfect sense to me. But just in terms of the cost benefit, the efficiencies of a digital currency versus traditional forms of payment like cash, for example, what are we talking about here? Can you give us a sense?
Well, from a policy point of view, we took the position that for you and I as individuals with mobile wallet, if we are distributing payments amongst ourselves, if it's the Sand Dollar, there is no transaction charge being exacted on those users in the digital currency space. However, we do allow the payment providers to charge for their services in other realms, such as the merchant services that they provide. One of the advantages that they have in terms of opportunity to reduce costs is that the layers of intermediaries in payment space are reduced to the extent that this is an entirely domestic platform for settling payments, which was not the case for a lot of the other types of transactions out there, such as the debit cards and the credit cards. Inevitably, there is an international element. Those will continue to exist, but now we're introducing new persons who will be potentially using services where you're literally, in some cases, just texting funds from one person to the next. For those individuals, the cost will be reduced.
It makes sense to me. Talk to me about the fact that it's pegged to your local currency, which is also obviously pegged to the US dollar. There are critics here that say you need to have some ability for it to be a store of value rather than just an exchange of value utility function. If you want big business, if you want investors to hold this digital coin on their balance sheets, for example, what do you make of that? And is this in any way comparable to a cryptocurrency like a Bitcoin, for example? Or do you see what you're doing here as something entirely separate?
In some respect, it is separate. We are focused on enabling more efficient transactions in the payment space. We have not designed our central bank digital currency as a substitute for deposit or equivalent assets in the banking system. As a matter of fact, we've said that there are limits to how much of this instrument that the retail user can hold. So we do not want persons to be looking at this as an alternative to deposit. That's certainly not what we're up to. We want the focus to be on how it eases the settlement process when funds are transferred from one place to the next.
And so why is this superior to using something like a PayPal, for example, that isn't just purely domestic, it can cross borders and has global reach? Why?
Well,
and you can educate me on the logic here of a central bank digital coin.
Well, think about it. If you have Apple Pay, PayPal, and many of the others in the US or other markets, and you identify the equivalent in the Bahamian market space, what is happening is that if those platforms are not interoperable or they cannot speak with each other easily, you're forcing the consumers to make a choice, in some cases, between which platform they use for payment. What we've said in the Bahamas is that, yes, we can have differentiated services, different platforms, but they must communicate. And we provide the glue for the communication across those platforms. So the central bank digital currency in this case allows the other payment platforms to still demonstrate whatever innovations they want in terms of how they provide services. But every user at a minimum can now send funds across the system wherever, irrespective of the platform that they choose for those services. So that is what is important. And so we were able, in many respects, to leapfrog the process, because dealing with interoperability in the payment space is not an easy hurdle to overcome, especially if you already have a very developed system with lots of providers in the space.
It's so exciting. I think other central banks around the world should be talking to you. Can't wait to see your progress and look forward to speaking to you soon. John Rolle, Governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Thank you.